regular meeting of the Chicago Board of Election Commissioners for Tuesday, August 11th, 2015. Good morning, everyone. My name is Langdon Neal. I'm chairman of the board, and to my left is Commissioner Marisol Hernandez. First item on the agenda is the consideration of the agenda itself. Any additions, deletions? Hearing none, we'll move to approval of the minutes. We have draft minutes before you for our last meeting of July 16, 2015.
Motion to approve.
Moved by Commissioner Hernandez. I'll second. Further discussion. Hearing none. All's in favor?
Aye.
We are approved. Executive Director's report, Mr. Goff.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to give the board members some ideas of what we've done in the last couple of weeks. On July 31st, first of all, I want to thank Jim Allen and Jim Scanlon for joining me over at the ABA annual meeting. We had a meeting in front of the Standard Committee on Election Law, and I think it did very well. We were there for about 2.5 hours discussing what we are doing for the upcoming year and about early voting, the length of grace period registration, other items, and they were quite impressed. So I think it was a really good meeting. I mean, Mr. Scanlon, how do you?
I agree with Mr. Goff, and it was a good exchange. We talked about technology, use of technology, insofar as election day registration, early voting, electronic poll books, voting equipment. It was a good exchange back and forth. I think, as Mr. Goff said, I think they're very complimentary toward the board, and had some very positive things to say about the board's execution of election day procedures, and I think they were impressed also with the fact that Illinois has moved forward with a lot of new initiatives as far as making the ballot and the franchise available to more voters over a longer period of time. So I think it was a very good exchange, very good discussion.
Jim?
It was all of those things, and it was very flattering as well, because they were picking our brains about not only what we're doing in Chicago and what changes have come out of Springfield, but what have we seen in other jurisdictions that we want to try to mimic or think about. So we were talking about everything from Los Angeles trying to develop its own system, and Milwaukee, what they do with chief judges or chief inspectors, and they were trying to put together an agenda. But like Mr. Scanlon said, they were very impressed with some of the changes out of Springfield, including the ability to allow a voter to have many of their selections count on a provisional ballot, even if they're in the wrong precinct. They were very interested in that. So they're trying to build an agenda for 2016, some things that are achievable, and that's what we're there for.
Okay, great.
The other item was on August 1st, I was invited by the ABA to attend a panel on the Voting Rights Act of 1965, which I was invited to, but there was somebody who brought up about vote fraud in Chicago in 1980. And, half a truth is as much as a lie as anything else.
Yes.
And he brought up this thing that the Justice Department looked into it, but never once did he say that this was turned over by the Chicago board to the Justice Department. Mm-hmm. So I was not invited to speak, but I had to stand up and voice my words for about a half hour. So I think we got the message across, and all the panels on there from MALDEF, League of Women Voters, and other people were very complimentary. So I just wanted the board members to be aware of that.
Great.
Last was that I was invited by the Bipartisan Policy Center to go to LA last week, and that was very interesting. In fact, I'm putting together a PowerPoint that I'm going to share with the board members and staff. But we get a tour of LA County's operation, which is really funny. We were talking about space for absentee vote, for our vote by mail. They have almost a half a floor that was as large as what we have here in the office, that they're doing just by vote by mail. And they do around 400,000. Just to let you know, if it takes off, we're going to have to move vote by mail out to the warehouse. There's no other way of putting it. I mean, to do that type of volume and the turnaround time, I think we really need to, and there's no space in this building. So I think, our backup plan is to go to the warehouse. We're going to try it for the first time and see what happens, but if not, I think we may have to do the warehouse. So I will sit down and discuss it with staff, but it will be an issue. Not only was LA's operation very interesting, but we had to talk about early voting and vote centers, and they're talking about what changes there will be in early vote and what problems we have with vote centers. And they said, how long does it take somebody to actually, they're talking about lines going in, being processed. Well, they did not point to how long it takes somebody to vote. And could you pass that to the board members? Mr. Scanlon got this for me. This was the article from the New York Times comparing ballot lengths around the country. And it says that in Cook County, which includes the city of Chicago voters, we have the largest ballot in the United States. It's something that is always, we don't talk about. The other jurisdictions that were around the room, they were the largest in the United States. Their ballots weren't even half our size. So the length of the ballot has a lot to do with lines. And I just want everybody to be aware of that. I mean, if it takes, they said they have limits of 10 minutes in a booth. You can never vote our November election in 10 minutes on a touchscreen because of the review screens. So it's just something that we have to keep in mind when they talk about the length of ballot. In fact, I think the president even commented to Jim Allen about, all the judges on there, you're killing me, what's going on? So, I mean, it's something that we really need to look at. And that's basically what we have. We're meeting with ES&S to go over some items. We're busy, and we have to really start thinking about the vote by mail. So I'd like to get permission to send out to all our stakeholders and to the elected officials about considering mailing an application for absentee ballot to every registered voter.
I certainly am for it. I don't know about how you.
I think it's a great idea.
I think we should get hold of the process because before the political parties fill the void.
Right.
So we can do it on our forms in a way that we can manage. I think we should plan for it.
Okay.
Definitely.
Okay. That's all I have to the board.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Goff. Ms. Bateman.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Like Mr. Goff said, we're just busy here. All the departments are just working, gearing up for next year. Warehouse is in the middle of doing preventative maintenance on the equipment, and all's going well out there, so just everyone's busy. Staff's taking time off, but that's well deserved.
Well deserved. That's what they're supposed to do in August.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Our ad hoc group that is looking at our online registration and system, not registration, I'm sorry, our election day electronic system. How's that group going?
It's going.
Yeah.
We're going to meet with ES&S with staff Wednesday and Thursday and go from A to Z and see where we're at.
Okay, good.
So I hopefully will have an answer for you right after Thursday where we're at.
Our plan for the next
Yes.
election. Great.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, great. Mr. Allen? I didn't have anything else from Mr. Baker?
No.
Okay, Mr. Allen.
The budget preparations have been completed, so the vast majority of our documents for the coming year have been submitted. A lot of them reflected all the changes that are coming about as a result of Election Day registration with the not the polling place administrator, but the election coordinator position that we're going to have more information for you about at a future meeting. Similarly, we're working on signage and posters, materials related to Election Day registration, and we've got our first step in in that direction with the delivery this late last night of the mobile version of the board's website. So now if you're on a mobile device or a tablet device, there'll be a shrunk down version of our website that's more amenable or visually useful. And it basically offers just the essentials: voter registration, early voting information, your voter information, and it offers the ability to search for your voter information whether or not you're a registered voter now. So if you don't include your name, you're going to be able to find your polling place on election day. So that will be important as we roll that program out. So we're very pleased that the vendor completed that work, and we've got it up in all 5 languages. So right now, if you go to our website, it should automatically flip you to the mobile version of the website.
Fantastic. So when are you gonna announce that in any way, Mr. Allen?
Yeah, we want to push it through.
Sure, absolutely.
First, we're showing it right now to all the managers. Everybody else has known about the concept of which items we're going to put most priority on. Vote by mail, early voting, your voter information, and then it's got a link to allow you to go to the full website if you want. But all that information is up there, and so now sent it out to all the managers, but yes, we'll announce that.
So we have an app on our phone now,
We now have an app. We now have an app for our phones.
Wow.
So
And thank you for your encouragement on that too, Commissioner.
So, I mean, if we go to the apps, is it really
It's not really an
Yeah.
app.
I'm exaggerating a little bit.
Well-
But when you go to, on your smartphone
Right.
or your tablet device, if you go to chicagoelections.com and it detects that you're on a smartphone, it'll automatically take you to m.chicagoelections.com,
Okay.
which is a mobile version of,
Okay.
just a very miniaturized version of the site that's more visually attractive and useful for a cell phone user.
Okay. And well, then we were talking about the possibility of tracking an absentee mail ballot,
Yeah, we're working on that.
but that would be different,
This is something different. And
not included in this.
That would be, during election time, you can use that to check your early voting or absentee voting status. You can also use it to pull up your sample ballot. So that will be accessible on the mobile app or mobile.
Through
platform.
another software? Through the other
No,
software?
through existing software that we have.
Okay.
So it's just a slightly different presentation. So right now, when you go to your voter information, you can pull up the basics such as your polling place, a map that takes you from your home to the polling place, what precinct and ward it is, and then you can go to your list of public officials. So from the President of the United States down to local Republican and Democratic ward committeemen. You've got all that list there. And then in election season, you have your absentee status and your sample ballot.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Allen. We'll move to old business, where we had a discussion of new projects and election administration. Is there anything else to talk about there?
Mr. Chairman.
Okay. We talked about the electronic poll books. We're still a meeting away or so on that.
Wednesday and Thursday will be.
Okay. And voting equipment, nothing new other than preventative maintenance?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, we did get, a proposal on the equipment.
Yes.
Met with the budget department. Funds are really tight. In fact, they're
Naturally.
looking at our budget again, so
Okay.
we'll have to go in front of the city and the county to try to pass our budget. So,
When are they planning those budget hearings?
They were talking September. They moved it from October to September.
Okay. Legislation.
Nothing to report, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. 2016 election calendar. Mr. Scanlon, anything to support there? Other than-
Well, we have before you for consideration and approval of 2016 election calendar. All of the signature requirements from the State Board of Elections for federal, statewide, legislative, judicial candidates have been plugged in. The signature requirements for county offices computed by the Cook County Clerk have been plugged in. We also plugged in signatures, minimum signature requirements for the office of Ward Committeeman in the city of Chicago. And I just want to mention a couple of things with regard to that. First of all, it has been my recommendation that the signature requirements for Ward Committeemen be computed on the basis of election results from the November 2014 general election.
Okay.
The statute that prescribes the minimum signature requirements is found in Section 7-10 of the Election Code, and generally provides that nominations for candidates for Ward Committeemen be signed by not less than 10%, no more than 16% of the primary electors of the party of the ward. Now, the 10% was struck down as unconstitutional 20 years ago. But the statute has never been changed. But we know from the court cases from the Seventh Circuit U.S. Court of Appeals that the minimum signature requirement is now 5% of the number of primary electors of the ward. The other component of this statute is in trying to determine the number of primary electors. And Section 710 says, for wards or districts of political subdivisions, the number of primary electors shall be determined by taking the total vote cast for the candidates for such political party who received the highest number of votes in such ward or district at the last regular election for which an officer was regularly scheduled to be elected from that ward or district. Now, the key words are regularly scheduled to be elected from that ward or district. Back in the day when we had partisan elections for citywide officers, mayor, city clerk, city treasurer, and those officers were elected from members of the Republican and Democratic parties. The board always used the preceding April municipal election where mayor, city clerk, city treasurer were elected. And we used that election to compute the numbers. 1999 in Illinois, in the city of Chicago, I should say, we moved to nonpartisan election. We no longer have partisan candidates. So you can't use that election anymore. For several years, since year 2000, we've used a couple of different elections. We've tried to go back to the last primary election where the ward committeemen were elected and use those numbers as the base for determining signature requirements. The problem we have here is the last election for ward committeemen in the city of Chicago was in March of 2012. After that election, and before the November 2012 general election, wards in the city of Chicago were redistricted. So all of those ward boundaries have changed, and some wards have changed significantly. So the wards don't exist as they did back in March of 2012. So you can't use that election. So what election do you use? Basically, the only two elections from which you had candidates from the Democratic and Republican parties elected citywide were November 2012 and November 2014. November 2014 is the last general election. And it's, for that reason, my recommendation is that the November 2014 general election be used to compute the signature requirements. Now, it's going to result in some, substantially higher signature requirements, but I don't know what other choices are available. And in fact, the other issue too is for Green Party. Green Party, they have the ability or the right to elect committeemen by virtue of the fact that at the at the November 2014 election, they obtained more than 5% of the vote cast for Water Reclamation District. And that entitled them, they're therefore established in the Metropolitan Water Reclamation District of Greater Chicago, which includes all of the city of Chicago. So therefore, they have the right to elect committeemen in all the wards in the city of Chicago. But the only election where we have results from the Green Party is November 2014.
Well, at least you're using the same election.
It's the same election for all three parties.
Yeah, right, yeah.
So therefore, that's been my recommendation, and that is the number that's been used for purposes of the 2016 calendar that's before you now.
Is, are any other electoral jurisdictions in Illinois encountering larger ones this issue?
No, because we're the only ones that elect ward committeemen. Other areas of the state, they elect precinct committeemen. For example, in suburban Cook County, it's all precinct committeemen or township committeemen. I should say township committeemen in Cook County. Outside Cook, then you get to precinct committeemen. So we're really unique in the sense that we elect ward committeemen.
Jim, for these, the bizarre situation is, for some of these minimum signature requirements for ward committeemen,
Yes.
don't they exceed what the minimum signature was for the aldermanic candidate?
Yes, in some
Yeah.
cases it could.
Yeah,
Yes. Yeah.
so it'd be harder to be a ward committeeman than an alderman.
And
I'm just
part of
saying.
it's driven by the fact that there's a greater turnout
Yeah, right, no, I
in the November general elections. And it's based on turnout, based on the number of votes cast.
which, I'm sure we're gonna hear that, but I think your logic is sound.
Yeah.
But I'm sure, yeah, we'll hear the fact that, for instance, in the 34th ward, you need 902 signatures to become the ward committeeman.
Right.
That'll raise some eyebrows among those grassroots candidates.
I'm sure it will.
Yeah.
I'm sure it will.
I don't know how else, I don't know what other conclusion basis you could.
I don't either. And the problem is the statute has not been rewritten
Right.
to reflect reality. As I said, it still contains a 10% minimum signature requirement that was declared in the Constitution 20 years ago.
Right.
And the statute has not changed. It has not changed to reflect the fact that you have every 10 years ward redistricting,
Yeah.
which, before 2000, you could still look back to April, the previous April election, and use that election for mayor, city clerk, city treasurer, because they were elected on a partisan basis. That's no longer the case, but the statute's never been changed or amended to reflect that.
The statute, well, the case law, because the statute hasn't been amended, the case law also still provides for a maximum signature requirement, right?
Right, the case law never struck down the 16% maximum signature requirement, so that's still in place.
Which I question whether that's still legally valid. Yeah.
There's-
Let's
yeah.
just hope we don't have to address that. Let's hope that Commissioner Hernandez said. Yeah. Well, okay, thank you, Jim. That was, I think, well reasoned and thought out. I don't know what other conclusion you reached, but it is noticeable.
Do you need any kind of motion?
I do, yes, please. And before I make the motion, the only change in the draft or there will be one change from the draft you have in front of you, and that is the website for the State Board of Elections is changed, so,
Oh,
and that will be changed before it goes out.
okay.
But, yes, if we could have the vote to adopt and approve the 2016 election calendar.
Okay, motion to adopt and approve the 2016 election calendar dated August 11, 2015.
I'll second. Further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That'll be the order.
Thank you.
Okay. All righty. We have the next item is contract amendment for Lake County Press. Mr. Goff, are you addressing that, or Jim?
Mr. Scanlon? Orell's not here.
This is an amendment to the contract that was entered into in November of 2013 for ballot printing and delivery services with Lake County Press, Inc. And the amendment number 1 you have before you is effectively to extend the term of the contract through December 31 of 2016, which will get the board through the March and November 2016 elections. The scope of services has been amended to include a new statement of work that's attached to the amendment as an Appendix C-1. This is a statement of work that sets forth the types and the numbers of the various ballots that are estimated to be required. And this has been negotiated primarily through Gary Mercision and Jim Wicklander for Lake County Press. And this will get us through the March 2016 primary election and the November 2016 general election. And it also includes the prices, the total number of ballots for the March 2016 primary election is 3,460,250, and the total cost for the March primary election shall not exceed $933,260. It also contains a provision that should there be no election for the Green Party or no Democratic/Green Party hybrid ballots, Republican/Green Party hybrid ballots, federal office only or nonpartisan ballots, then the cost shall be reduced proportionally. For the November 2016 general election, the total number of ballots is estimated to be 4,105,000.
What page is that on, Jim?
That's at page 5 of 6 in the statement of work, Appendix
okay,
C1,
thank you.
toward the bottom of the page. 4,105,000 ballots. And the total cost, which is on the next page, the total cost for November 8, 2016 general election ballot shall not exceed $618,715. And there's also provision that should there be no constitutional amendment ballots, the cost shall be reduced proportionally. So that's what you have before you. And I believe that the purchasing agent has recommended approval.
Can I just make a couple
Yes.
of comments to you, Mr. Chairman? And I did give you that about how large our ballot is. And considering absentee voting, according to the new law, is going to open 40 days prior to the date of the election. means that we have to have this in place as soon as possible.
Yes.
So we want to start working on this right away, Mr. Chairman.
Right. So when they provide, so we're anticipating printing 250,000 vote-by-mail ballots for November.
Yes.
That's enough?
Yes.
Okay.
According to, well.
With our new plan.
According to my estimate, yes, but I think we have it in such a way that we could expand if we need to.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, the number of precinct ballots, they're interchangeable, yeah, so.
Right,
it would-
so, you know, you move some to
Yeah.
vote by mail, you take away some from precinct.
Right.
So, and I support, I'm just challenging you, because I think we might be, as we were surprised by same-day registrations popularity, we might be surprised by vote-by-mail popularity too.
Right.
And so, you know, if we need another 100,000, let's do it now.
Yeah.
I mean,
We're
that's
not
all
gonna-
I'm saying.
Chairman, we were caught once before, but it won't happen on the.
What's been the highest in terms of mail ballots that we've sent out?
The record high is World War II,
Oh,
when we had so many people overseas.
right.
In 1944. But we're now creeping up toward that record. So it was approximately 107,000 ballots.
Yeah.
But when the board undertakes a mailing to every voter, inviting them and giving them an application, we anticipate that these numbers could pop even more than 250,000. So these are conservative, but as Mr. Goff said, it's flexible in that, like you noted, if we go up on one, we can push down on the
Yeah.
other. So we'll have to, it'll make it more complicated though.
Yes.
Because then how much do you reduce that precinct by? Do you
I-
reduce-
Well, yeah.
That's what I say,
So-
I say put another 100,000 ballots in there, just, well, I don't know, Commissioner, what do you
We're
think?
gonna have
belt and
belts and
suspenders. Yeah, yeah,
And these are, you know, estimates,
yeah,
so they can go up or down.
Okay.
all right, that was my only comment.
So we can make adjustments depending on the interest we see or, you know.
Right, because the way this is structured for printing purposes is that it's giving Lake County Press and the board a list of how many different variations the printer can expect and that we expect. Then you go up and down, as long as you're in the aggregate, you stay the same.
Yeah.
It works out for both parties.
Okay.
And I'm sorry, go ahead, Commissioner. And I'm trying to, forgot the 40-day, the new law requiring 40 days in advance of the election, we have a ballot available for overseas only, or
No.
everyone?
Well, for military and overseas voters, we are required by federal law and now by state law to transmit a ballot to any military and overseas voter who has made a request for a vote-by-mail ballot. We do that using a PDF of the ballot. We don't, if we have an official ballot, we'll mail it out. But seldom do we have an official ballot available by the 46th day before the election.
46 days?
46th day.
Okay.
46th day. The statute was recently changed, the early voting statute was changed to open early voting 40 days before the election in the office of the election authority. There was some claim that that was an oversight, but it's in the statute. And how we've addressed it in the calendar is that we have, on the 40th day, we have early voting opening in the office of the election authority, but we caution voters to call, to check with the Board of Election Commissioners to see if ballots are available. And if they're not available, you know, we can't have them vote. We'll have to notify them that, you know, we don't have a
Back in
Uh-huh.
ballot.
a week or whatever.
But by the 15th day, when all early voting opens throughout the state of Illinois, then of course we're going to have a ballot by the
Yes.
15th day. But the 40th day, we caution voters to check with the board to see if ballots are available.
Okay, thank you. All right, is there a motion to approve the 2016 contract with Lake County Press as provided in the memorandum from our purchasing agent?
So moved.
I'll second. Further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
And we have item C, resolution to destroy election materials from November 6, 2012. The resolution provides that there are no longer any contested results of the aforesaid election, meaning the election of November 6, 2012, pending in court or statutory deadline, and the statutory deadline for filing a contested elections has expired, and there's no other pending litigation involving the results of those elections. It's therefore resolved and ordered that the ballots applications for ballots, certificates of results, affidavits, and other paper paraphernalia used in the aforesaid elections be disposed of in accordance with the Local Records Act, 50 ILCS 205/1. And many of these records are electronically stored. Not all of them, but many of them are electronically stored.
That's correct.
Yeah.
And this deals with electronic paper records of any sort.
Yes.
Well, so moved.
I'll second. All those in favor?
Aye.
That'll be the order. Legal status report, Mr. Scanlon.
The only thing I have to report is that in the Rose, case of Rose versus Board of Election Commissioners, the plaintiffs' appellants filed their brief with the Seventh Circuit U.S. Court of Appeals effective July 31, and the deadline for the board and the state of Illinois to file their appellee brief is August 31st. I've had discussions with the Illinois Attorney General, Assistant Attorney General, who's been assigned to work on the brief, and we'll be filing a joint brief. The Assistant Attorney General indicates to me that she is going to seek an extension of time to file that brief, so that will be filed, I assume, fairly shortly. But there will be a brief filed, and we'll certainly share that with the commissioners if and when, not if and when it is filed. And that's all I have to report.
We do not have a financial report, so I'll turn it to the public comment section. Any public comment today? All righty. There is no need for an executive session, so I'll accept a motion.
Could we have a brief executive session, personnel?
To cover personnel matters?
Okay. Yes. So moved.
All right, we have a move to address personnel matters in executive session. Okay, moved by Commissioner Hernandez. I'll second. All those in favor?
Aye.
We'll go back in open session. The board took no action in open session that requires a vote. In closed session, that requires a vote in open session. So we will set the motion to recess till our next regular scheduled meeting, which shall we do, the 25th of August?
20.
At 9 o'clock.
So moved.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
The order.